Nearly a year ago, at the beginning of 2022, the Russian armed forces deployed tens of thousands of troops into Belarus, a relatively small country of about 9 million people, whose government is a very close ally of the Kremlin, and whose territory is immediately to the west of Russia and to the north of Ukraine. Belarus's southern border with Ukraine extends for more than 1,000 kilometers across largely flat, open and marshy terrain, and is crucially placed fewer than 90 kilometers away from Ukraine's capital and largest city, Kiev. These facts make Belarus a vitally strategic location for Russia's invasion plan in the Ukraine. And so after Belarus allowed the Russians to pile up around 30,000 of their troops on the southern border in February of 2022, the Russians launched their initial blitzkrieg attack by storming across the borders towards Kiev. Their objective was to quickly occupy and conquer the Ukrainian capital, overthrow the government of Vladimir Zelensky, and force a quick end to the war on Russia's own terms, which would have likely involved establishing a puppet government in Ukraine that would grant the Russians their desired territorial conquest in the east. But of course, that's not how things ended up turning out. Ukrainian resistance was significantly fiercer than the Russian had anticipated, and the Russians' own logistics, planning, equipment and morale proved significantly worse than they initially believed. After suffering thousands of casualty and failing to capture Kiev, the surviving Russians withdrew back across the border towards the safety of Belarus and left a path of scorched earth behind in their way, like in Bucha, where hundreds of civilians and prisoners of war had been hastily shot, but Russian missile system and artillery based within Belarus have continued to bomb targets within Ukraine throughout the months of the war that have followed. And now it appears that yet another Russian attack from Belarus against Kiev may be building and coming very soon. Western satellite images have revealed increasingly concentrated military activity within Belarus near to the Ukrainian border. It's now estimated by Western intelligence that around 20,000 Russian troops have entered the country once again and are massing in the south near the border with Ukraine. Railways from Russia have been flowing through Belarus with military hardware and equipments, and brand new roads are being sliced through the forests towards the border. These are all troubling signs that could be pointing towards a second Russian attack from Belarus on the Ukrainian capital nearly a year after the first attempt failed. And there are fears that this time the Belarusian army itself may be joining in alongside the Russians in the attack. But if that's true, why has it taken this long for Belarus, a nominal ally of Russia, to formally join the Russians in the invasion of Ukraine? Why has Belarus continuously granted the Russians military safe passage through their country and access to their bases to attack Ukraine from without formally committing their own troops alongside them? This is it for today's video. See you in the next one. Until then, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.